Hello, and welcome to Chapter 4 of Book 2 on The Big Answer, the single biggest answer to life's biggest questions. If you haven't, please start with the video titled Book 1, Intro to the Big Answer, and work through the Book 1 chapters after that before starting on Book 2. In this video, we're going to look at a much more functional and objective definition of chaos that better describes how nature actually works, cleans up a lot of confusion and misconceptions, explains mistakes we've made throughout history, and makes so many counterintuitive aspects of reality suddenly make total sense. This is probably my favorite topic to talk about in this entire model, even though it isn't part of the 7 qualities themselves. Let's get started. We just finished covering order and complexity. Even though we've only covered 2 of the 7 qualities so far, and covering chaos seems like a diversion, it's really like an extra dimension in our understanding of these first 2 qualities. Chaos is usually defined as the state of being disordered, confused, unpredictable, or formless. However, things we usually describe as chaotic are typically composed of orderly elements and give rise to well-understood, predictable behaviors and forms. An emergency evacuation of a building or stadium seems chaotic because, while we understand people, we don't know what each individual person is going to do. And yet the movement of a crowd as a whole, the paths and exits they'll take, the pressure built up from people pushing on each other, the time it will take, etc., can all be modeled extremely accurately. Sand blowing in the winds seems chaotic because, while we understand the dynamics of a sand grain, we can't predict what each individual grain will do, and yet we can model exactly the concentration of particles in the air based on wind speed, and when combined with wind direction and duration, the size, shape, and pattern of dunes that will result is completely predictable. For this reason, we often call natural systems orderly chaos. We completely understand what we mean, but if we think about the typical definitions of these words, it doesn't make any sense, and with these concepts in our heads, it seems counterintuitive. This makes it obvious that we need better definitions that match how reality actually works and that are objective in nature. For TBA, we're going to redefine chaos as a high number of available options and possibilities. So the more chaos there is, the higher the number of available options and possibilities someone or something has, or that are present in a system such as a society or relationship. Unlike basing the definition on subjective qualities such as confused or unpredictable, the number of options and possibilities available to a person, thing, or system is entirely objective. Still, at first glance, this doesn't sound that special or like we've changed very much. When there's lots of options and possibilities available, the result is highly unpredictable, unconstrained, changing, patternless, etc. All the same hallmarks we typically associate with chaos, right? And yet we've changed so much. For example, if we increase the number of orderly options and possibilities, based on this new definition, we've actually increased chaos. Confused? Think about what would happen if we took away orderly options and possibilities from something. We would have actually made it simpler and less dynamic, as there are fewer things it can do. It's more constrained, not less. And because of this, it has become more predictable. We can at least predict that whatever happens won't be orderly and won't display patterns. So, by removing the orderly options and possibilities, we actually made chaos less chaotic. This means that the opposite of TBA's definition of chaos can't be order, it's simply constraint. And the opposite of TBA's definition of order isn't chaos, it's just disorder. Imagine I told you to do something, anything, for the next 10 seconds, and let's say you started doing something like clapping a rhythm, or reciting poetry, or dancing. If I said, "Wait, you can't do that, that's orderly," you rightly respond, "But you said I could do anything I want." Chaos is completely unconstrained, allowing for anything, including order. But nature doesn't allow anything and everything to happen, does it? If it did, the big answer wouldn't be possible. This is because when options are randomly chosen, by simple fact that there are always far more disorderly options than orderly ones, statistically everything would trend towards disorder. There needs to be some mechanism that limits disorder from taking over while allowing for order to thrive. The beauty is that by teasing apart chaos and disorder, this now becomes totally possible. If we look at evolution, chaos is pushing for any and every mutation to occur at random, with no rhyme or reason. And that's exactly what happens. All options and possibilities are available when it comes to DNA goof-ups. However, if a mutation results in disorder in the organism, either a body part or behavior, that will result in the organism dying on its own or a predator hastening its demise. This is what I call the disorder filter. All orderly mutations pass this filter, but disorderly ones get weeded out. Note that disorder isn't the only thing evolution is weeding out. Acting as a disorder filter is just one of evolution's jobs. What would we expect to see as the result of a system driving toward chaos? More options and possibilities. But with a disorder filter present, well, we'd see an increase in orderly options and possibilities, right? In other words, a system with increasingly complex order. And is this what we see? Yes, and not just in evolution, we see an increase in complex order anywhere disorder filters are present. In nature, the disorder filter is simple survival. In society, the disorder filter is in the form of fines or jail. A society that's disorderly will collapse or be conquered. For businesses, the disorder filter is bankruptcy. In relationships, it's sleeping on the couch. As long as the disorder filters do their job, we would expect all of these things to drift toward complex order over time, which they do. Of course, complexity and order are limited by the rest of the 7 qualities needing to balance out, so an equilibrium will be found, but the main thing is that what was counterintuitive is now intuitive. Rather than complex order in nature being seen as an exception to nature's drive toward chaos, it is now completely intuitive and exactly what we would expect to see. What are some other areas in life this clarifies? It's fairly intuitive that constraint takes energy while chaos doesn't, meaning chaos is more efficient and constraint is more inefficient. Makes sense, right? This means that complex order is actually more efficient than more simple, constrained order. Is this what we see in reality? Countries with more freedom to engage in a wider range of orderly activities actually employ fewer people and spend less money on internal policing than highly constrained societies such as dictatorships or theocracies, in which a huge percentage of the population and a significant portion of the budget goes to internally policing their citizens. These more highly constrained societies have been shown time and again to be more brittle and susceptible to collapse than less constrained ones, which many people find counterintuitive, but which this model explains perfectly. It also goes for, say, an overly constraining parent or partner. The outcome tends to be exactly the opposite of what they are trying for. This new understanding also explains the other extreme, why allowing practices or behaviors that result in disorder will also undermine a society. The better a disorder filter is at quickly and precisely targeting and eliminating the disorder, the more efficient it will be. Letting the disorder grow unchecked will eventually require more energy to filter, meaning the disorder filter is less efficient. The longer cancer is allowed to grow, the harder it is to cure. If a relationship is disorderly, it leads to more fighting, more hurt, and will require more work to mend. If a society is disorderly, it costs more to clean up and policing becomes harder as the problems get bigger. If something doesn't filter its own disorder effectively, reality will do the job instead by simply eliminating it. The society, business, economy, government, or relationship will fail. So, for example, in a society, It's important to see what freedoms result in increased efficiency and complex order, and which freedoms result in disorder and inefficiency. For example, alcohol prohibition resulted in huge costs for policing and enforcement and only served to finance gangs and increase crime. Allowing the sale of alcohol, but making drinking or being drunk in public illegal takes far less effort and, instead of costing the government money, actually brings in money in the form of taxes. In my country, you just have to drink privately in homes or businesses with liquor licenses, but not in public. But what is the disorder we want to limit? Does a group or couple having a picnic at the beach or park with a few beers or a bottle of wine cause any disorder? No. So according to this model, that should be allowed. The law should narrowly focus on just the disorder. Being drunk and disorderly in public should be illegal, drunk driving should be illegal, etc., since if these were left unconstrained, that would lead to disorder. In a world where an AI was in charge and could see and know everything, that could actually lead to more freedoms, since it could actually tailor rules to each person. For example, when Hank goes camping, he can light a fire, because he can do so competently and responsibly, but Fred will burn the forest down, so he wouldn't be allowed to make fires until he learned how and could demonstrate he is now competent and responsible enough to do so. Or someone jaywalking might not get a ticket since they were careful to cross when there was no traffic, but someone trying to jaywalk in the same spot 10 seconds later would get a ticket because now the cars are coming. Just like TBA, an AI could be completely contextual when it polices people in society, actually allowing far more freedom than creating laws that need to apply to the lowest common denominator and apply universally, regardless of the context. Understanding these concepts will go a long way toward more accurately enacting laws that allow the most freedoms, while more efficiently limiting those behaviors that actually lead to disorder. This also applies to parents and romantic partners choosing their battles. We'll be revisiting these concepts and going into more detail in Book 3, which looks at strategies for enhancing the 7 qualities and which factors in ways to make a society more complex, dynamic, stable, and efficient by allowing the most freedoms. As it should be obvious, anyone worried about AI taking over and subverting humanity and making us automatons should see the benefits of teaching AI these better, more accurate, more explanatory, and more freedom-promoting concepts. In the next video, we'll get back to the 7 qualities and look at stability. I'll see you there, and in the meantime, do good smart.